magical friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Here where we explore the mystical, spiritual, magical, and the occult. In today's video, I just want to share my thoughts on a book that has been on my shelf for quite a while. In fact, it's one of my very first books into witchcraft, and is Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. I am not Wiccan, but I've been walking this witchy path for several years. And this path is deeply personal, of course, but I still believe that there is a lot of value in exploring different traditions, perspectives, and at a time where there wasn't many books available on the topic, on witchcraft or even old or modern, this book gave me a starting point, even if I never became Wiccan. So even if you don't plan on to adopting this religion, I think is a pretty good book. And it also has a value as being one of the pioneers on talking to the mainstream about witchcraft, even if it is through the eyes of Wicca. I think that we owe a lot of respect to Scott Cunningham and also gratitude because without him and other authors contemporary to him that were not afraid of sharing their thoughts when the society was predominantly, I don't want to say one religion in particular, but y- it wasn't very friendly towards witches or witchcraft, the occult, and things like that. So for that, even if it's not the best book ever or the one and all, I am still very grateful for this book. So Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, is just what it promises, is a beginner-friendly introduction to Wicca. It is tailored for those that don't have a mentor, that don't have a coven, anything, and it shows you how you can walk this path alone. It shows you pretty much what you need to know to get started and not needing someone else's hand, which also adds to the value I was saying before because these practices, at least during that time, where they were very hidden and being openly about it wasn't easy. So finding a book where you can at least get started by yourself in solitary, I think it was so helpful for many of us. That's one of the things that I still appreciate about this book, that I was lent a hand into knowing more about witchcraft. And it was the first book that sort of guided me into yes, witchcraft is not just for fantasy books, video games, stories, and such, which is where I first, as kids, was our first exposure to it. So even as someone who's not a Wiccan, I still, while I was reading the book, find myself nodding in agreement through some very universal ideas, like the reverence for nature obviously is not exclusively Wiccan. There is the importance of personal intuition. There's also the idea of crafting rituals to resonate with you. And this was very liberating because even though it still shows you how to do a more traditional ritual and how things were done, it gives you the permission and the knowing that this has to resonate with you. And as someone that was born and raised as a Catholic, ritual is very much part of Mass. And even more like you take it home, there's so many ritualistic aspects of Catholicism. But because I learned this, I was used to being told what needs to be done. Like when you go to mass, there is a time for stepping up and going and taking communion. There's all those like rise and sitting down, and there is the moment where everyone sort of passes their hands and say peace be with you. And again, but I was trained into that. So when I first came into witchcraft and I saw this, it sort of just kept this same theme of rituals, though for a little bit I thought like, well, if nobody shows me, how am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know if I'm doing it right? And again, from a Catholic perspective, there's always someone guiding you and you're just part of it. There's most likely obviously a priest, sometimes a nun can also teach you things. Or again, this is something that I really appreciated. So sorry that I'm rambling and taking my focus out of the book. One of the standout sections for me was the approach to showing the tools. He emphasizes that being simple and that you just have to have intention, and that is enough. You don't need elaborate setups. Of course, it says that there's nothing wrong with it. It even shows you a setup and it shares with you tools like the atame and the bowl, chalice. But again, it just makes you feel that things don't have to be overwhelming. That if you don't have a chalice, you can use a teacup, right? That your altar can be a windowsill. In fact, my first altar was just in a box. As he writes, tools are just that, tools. The power is in you, the power is in us. And again, that just sort of felt as a permission and it made it very, very meaningful for me. That witchcraft in this practice, mysticism, looking for the truth and looking for arcane knowledge, is something that I could achieve because I was part of it. It wasn't something completely outside. Yes, it's great to have books and to have the guidance, but is in all of us. So this book is for everyone that's curious about Wicca, especially if you want to be a solitary practitioner. And even if you don't want to be Wiccan, but you want to learn more about it, and it gives you a start again in things because even though this is presented for you through the lens of a weekend practitioner, so many of the things are just basic witchcraft. And it is the specifics, beliefs, creeds, and thought that make it unique to this religion. So you can definitely win something and take something for yourself besides just knowing more about a religion, besides just being like a study. I love that introduces you to the god and the goddess, this duality. It was also my first book where I saw a goddess because before that, even though I also have read so many books about Greek culture and Roman culture and history and at school, and I knew of gods and goddesses, it just at that time it seemed like it was a fairy tale, a just a group of tales. And again, it just I guess I was still little and it didn't resonate with me until I started diving more into witchcraft, and I immediately fell in love with this duality and with having a goddess, a feminine counterpart, and this, or at least something that is has no gender, right? Because when it's only male, it just is like, how are we made to the same image? Again, I was raised Catholic, remember, and but God is only male. So either has no gender or there is a duality. In my opinion, and how I see, of course, I'm not saying that's how it is because until we all pass the veil, we may never know. We also have other very nice exercises in the book that again are not exclusively Wiccan. We have meditations and showing how this is important, is telling us what is important. There is a way like a breathing exercise. We have visualization and even how to play with energy in finding our own resonance with it, practicing and seeing from there. So again, I think this book is and was very empowering, especially at the time it was published. The Book of Shadows is also one that a concept that I was introduced in with this book, and I very much loved it. I wanted to have my book with all my notes and things that I learned and things that I found important, and I know it's now is kind of like a glorified journal with many notes, but it's still, I still have it. Even if is a just a fancy name, Book of Shadows or Grimoire. The value is still in there. And if I would not have been introduced to it, I was never much of someone who journals, so I might not have taken as many notes as I did have I not been introduced to this idea. So I'm also very grateful for that concept coming to myself through this book. I would love to hear your comments below if you read this book, if you decided that this is something that you would like to explore as well, and what you have thought of it.